I found the box on a Tuesday night, shoved behind a row of filing cabinets on the third floor. My name is Elliot. I am 27 years old, and I clean office buildings in Spokane, Washington. I work the night shift at Driftshade Limited, a mid-sized accounting firm that treats janitors like furniture. Most nights I moved through those halls invisible, wiping down desks and emptying trash bins while the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The work paid my rent and kept me fed. That was enough. The box was cardboard about the size of a shoebox with "Return to Owner" written across the top in faded black marker. I almost ignored it. People left things behind all the time, but something made me open it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of my family. There was my mom, younger than I remembered her, standing in front of a house I had never seen. My dad, holding a fishing rod, grinning at the camera. My sister Jenna, maybe 5 years old, sitting on a swing set I did not recognize. And me, younger me, in every single photo. I stared at them for a long time. The problem was simple. I did not remember any of these moments. Not one. I flipped through the stack twice, searching for something familiar. The backgrounds were wrong, the clothes were wrong, the places, all of them, felt like dreams I never had. My hands started shaking. I checked the back of one photo. There was a date. 15 years ago. I would have been 12. I had memories from when I was 12. I remembered the apartment we lived in, the school I went to, the neighbor's dog that barked every morning. But none of this. None of these places. At the bottom of the box was a folded piece of paper. I opened it. An address written in the same handwriting as the box label. 1247 Ashwood Lane. No city, no state. Just that. I sat on the floor of that empty office for 20 minutes, staring at the photos. My mom had died 3 years ago. My dad 5 years before that. Jenna barely spoke to me anymore. I had no one left to ask about this. But someone knew. Someone had put this box here. Someone wanted me to find it. I slipped the address into my pocket, packed the photos back into the box, and finished my shift in silence. When I walked out of that building at 6 a.m., the sun was just starting to rise. I did not go home. I pulled out my phone and searched for Ashwood Lane. It was 2 hours away in a town called Clearbrook. I had never heard of it. I grew up in Spokane. My whole life, as far as I knew, had been in Spokane. My parents worked hard. Dad was a mechanic. Mom cleaned houses. We were not rich, but we had what we needed. Jenna was 3 years younger than me, and we fought the way siblings do. Normal stuff. Normal life. Except I had always felt like something was missing. Not in a dramatic way. Just small gaps. Memories that did not quite line up. A birthday party I could not picture clearly. A vacation my mom mentioned once that I had no recollection of. When I asked about it, she got quiet, said I must have forgotten. Kids forget things, but kids do not forget entire years. After Dad died, I started helping Mom more. She got sick a year later. Cancer. It moved fast. By the time the doctors caught it, there was not much they could do. She spent her last few months in a hospice near our old apartment. I visited every day. Jenna came less often. She had her own life by then. I did not blame her. One night, a week before Mom passed, I asked her about my childhood. I had been having dreams, flashes of places I did not recognize. She looked at me for a long time, then turned her head toward the window. "You were a good kid, Elliot," she said. "You still are." That was all she said. I did not push. She died 3 days later. After the funeral, Jenna and I barely spoke. She moved to Seattle for work. I stayed in Spokane, picking up whatever jobs I could find. The cleaning gig at Driftshade was steady. I kept my head down, paid my bills, tried not to think too much, but the box changed that. I drove to Clearbrook the next day. The town was small. One main street, a few shops, a diner that looked like it had not changed since the 80s. I found Ashwood Lane on the edge of town. The houses were older, spaced far apart, with long driveways and overgrown lawns. Number 1247 was at the end of the road. a single-story house with chipped paint and a sagging porch. There was a mailbox at the end of the driveway with the name Walter painted on the side. No last name, just Walter. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the house. The photos were on the passenger seat. I picked one up. My mom, young and smiling, standing in front of this exact house. I got out of the car and walked to the door. My hand was shaking when I knocked. The door opened slowly. An old man stood there, maybe 70, with gray hair and a face full of deep lines. He looked at me without surprise, like he had been waiting. "So you found it again?" he said. I did not know what to say. I held up the box. "This was in my building. My family is in these photos, but I do not remember any of this." He stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the house smelled like old wood and coffee. The furniture was worn but clean. There were bookshelves along the walls filled with photo albums and framed pictures. I recognized some of the faces. My parents, my sister, me. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to a couch. I sat. He lowered himself into a chair across from me, moving like his bones ached. "My name is Walter," he said. "I knew your parents, a long time ago." "How?" "They lived here, in this town, in this house actually, for about 2 years. He paused. "You were 10 when you moved in, 12 when you left." I stared at him. "I do not remember living here." "No," he said quietly. "You would not." My throat felt tight. "Why not?" Walter leaned back in his chair. "Your parents came here to hide. Your father had gotten into trouble. Bad people were looking for him, so they packed up, changed their names, and moved to Clearbrook. I helped them. I owned this house. Let them stay." I could not breathe. "Change their names?" "Your real last name is not the one you grew up with," Walter said. "Your father was involved in something illegal. I do not know all the details. But it was serious enough that they had to disappear. And me? Jenna? You were just kids. Your parents thought it was safer if you did not remember. So when you left, they took you to a doctor, a specialist. He helped you forget. Both of you." The room spun. "That is not possible." "It is," Walter said. "Memory suppression. It is rare, expensive, but it works. They did it to protect you." I stood up, pacing. Why would they do that? Why not just tell me? "Because if you remembered and someone found you, you might have said something. Kids talk. Your parents could not risk it." I stopped moving. "Then why do I have these photos now?" Walter looked down at his hands. "Because I wanted you to know. Your parents are gone. The people they were running from are gone too. You deserve the truth." "Why now?" "Because you are old enough to handle it," he said. "And because I am dying. I wanted to give this back to you before I went." I sat back down, the weight of it pressing into my chest. My entire childhood, erased, rewritten, and no one told me. I did not leave Walter's house for hours. He told me everything. How my father, whose real name was Thomas, had worked for a man named Gregory who ran an illegal gambling operation out of Portland. My dad kept the books, laundered money. When the operation got raided, Thomas took evidence and ran. Gregory sent people after him. That was when we moved to Clearbrook. Walter had been a friend of my grandfather. When my dad called him desperate, Walter agreed to help. We lived in that house for 2 years. I went to school under a fake name, made friends, had a life I could not remember now. But Gregory's people were getting closer, so my parents made the call. They took Jenna and me to a private clinic in Canada. The doctor there specialized in trauma cases. He used a combination of therapy and medication to suppress specific memories. It took months. When it was done, we moved back to Spokane under new identities. My parents told us we had always lived there. We believed them. "Jenna does not remember either?" I asked. Walter shook his head. "She was 7. Easier to make her forget. You were older. It took longer." Does she know now? I do not think so. I only sent the box to you. I looked at the photos spread out on the coffee table. Why me? Because you were always asking questions, Walter said. Even as a kid, you wanted to know things. Your parents worried about that. I thought you deserved answers. I stayed quiet for a long time. Then I asked, what happened to Gregory? He went to prison, died there about 10 years ago. And my dad? The evidence he took? Burned it. Once Gregory was arrested, your father destroyed everything. Thought it would keep you safer. I picked up one of the photos. Me, standing next to a red bike in front of Walter's house. I had no memory of that bike. No memory of being that kid. I need to talk to Jenna, I said. Walter nodded. Be careful. She might not want to know. I left Clearbrook that afternoon. The drive back to Spokane felt longer than it should have. My mind was racing. I called Jenna 3 times. She did not pick up. I left a message. We need to talk. It is about Mom and Dad. Call me back. She called 2 days later. What do you want, Elliot? I found something, photos from when we were kids I need to show you. I do not have time for this. Jenna, please. She sighed. Fine. I will be in Spokane next week. We can meet then. The week dragged. I kept going to work, cleaning the same floors, emptying the same trash. But everything felt different. I kept thinking about the kid in those photos, the one who rode that red bike, who played in that yard, who had a whole life I did not remember. When Jenna finally showed up, we met at a coffee shop near my apartment. She looked tired, older than I remembered. We sat down, and I slid the box across the table. What is this? She asked. Open it. She did. Her face changed as she looked through the photos. Confusion first, then something else. Fear, maybe. Where did you get these? She whispered. An old man in Clearbrook. He knew Mom and Dad. He said we lived there. For 2 years. When we were kids. Jenna put the photos down. I do not remember this. Neither do I. That is the point. I told Jenna everything Walter had told me. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pushed the photos back toward me. This does not make sense, she said. Mom and Dad would not do that. He had proof. He showed me documents, birth certificates with different names, school records from Clearbrook. Then why do not I remember? Because they made us forget. Jenna stood up. I need to go. Jenna, wait. No. Her voice was sharp. I am not doing this. I do not care what some old man told you. Our parents loved us. They would not have messed with our heads like that. They were protecting us. From what? Some guy who died in prison 10 years ago? She grabbed her bag. You are obsessed with the past, Elliot. Let it go. She walked out before I could say anything else. I sat there for a long time, staring at the photos. I understood why she did not want to believe it. It was easier to think our childhood was normal, that our parents had been honest. But the evidence was right there, and deep down, I knew it was true. I went back to Clearbrook the following weekend. Walter was weaker than before. He moved slower, talked quieter. I asked him if there was anyone else who remembered us. He gave me a name. Patricia. She had been our neighbor. I found her house 2 streets over. She was in her 60s with kind eyes and a warm smile. When I introduced myself, she gasped. Elliot, Thomas and Linda's boy? Yes. She invited me in. We sat in her kitchen, and she told me stories. How I used to help her with her garden, how Jenna would come over and play with her cats, how my parents always seemed worried but tried to hide it. Your father was a good man, she said. Whatever he did before, he was trying to make it right. Do you know what happened? Why we left? She hesitated. There were men asking around, looking for a family that matched your description. Your parents packed up overnight. I never saw you again. Did they say goodbye? Your mother did. She hugged me and said she was sorry. That is all. I thanked Patricia and left. On the drive home, I called Jenna again. This time she picked up. I talked to someone else, I said. A neighbor. She remembered us. Everything Walter said is true. Jenna was quiet for a long time. What do you want me to do, Elliot? Fall apart? Be angry at Mom and Dad? They are dead. It does not matter anymore. It matters to me. Why? What does knowing change? I did not have an answer for that. We hung up without saying goodbye. Over the next few weeks, I kept digging. I found the clinic in Canada where we had been treated. They would not give me our records, but they confirmed that a family matching our description had been patients there. I found old news articles about Gregory's arrest. My father's name was mentioned once, listed as a witness who disappeared before the trial. Everything Walter said was true. My parents had erased part of my life, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not get it back. But I could find out why, and I could make sure no one else had to live with that kind of lie. I decided to confront the clinic. It took me 2 months to save enough money for the trip to Canada. I drove up on a Friday morning, crossing the border with a folder full of documents Walter had given me. The clinic was in a small town outside Vancouver, tucked into a quiet neighborhood that looked more like a suburban home than a medical facility. The receptionist was polite but firm. We cannot release patient records without proper authorization. I am the patient, I said. I just want to know what was done to me. You would need to file a formal request, and even then there are privacy laws. I leaned against the counter. My parents brought me here when I was 12. They paid someone to erase my memories. I need to know how. I need to know if it can be undone. Her expression softened. I will see what I can do. Wait here. She disappeared into a back room. I stood there for 20 minutes, staring at the pale green walls and outdated magazines. When she came back, there was a man with her. Mid-50s, graying hair, wearing a white coat. He introduced himself as Dr. Ian. You are looking for information about a procedure done years ago? He asked. Yes. My name is Elliot. I was a patient here. My sister, too. He gestured toward a small office. We sat down, and I explained everything. He listened carefully, his face unreadable. What you are describing sounds like memory reconsolidation therapy, he said. It was used occasionally in extreme trauma cases. The goal was to help patients suppress specific traumatic memories without affecting their overall cognitive function. Can it be reversed? He hesitated. In theory, yes. But it is complicated. Memories do not just disappear. They get buried. Retrieving them requires intensive therapy. And even then, there is no guarantee. I want to try. It could take years, and it might not work. I do not care. Dr. Ian studied me for a moment. Then he nodded. I will need to verify your identity and get some baseline assessments. But if you are serious, we can start the process. I left the clinic with an appointment scheduled for 3 weeks later. On the drive back, I called Jenna. She did not answer. I left a message. I found a way to get the memories back. If you want to do this with me, let me know. She never called back. The therapy started in early spring. I drove to Canada every other weekend. The sessions were exhausting. Dr. Ian used a combination of hypnosis, guided visualization, and medication to help me access the buried memories. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, fragments started coming back. I remembered the red bike, the feeling of riding it down Walter's driveway. I remembered Patricia's garden, the smell of tomatoes and dirt. I remembered a birthday party, Jenna laughing, my mom baking a cake. But I also remembered the fear, the way my parents would look out the window at night, the way my dad would tense up whenever a car drove past, the way my mom held me a little too tight when she said goodbye in the mornings. They had been terrified, and they had done what they thought was best. By summer, I had most of it back. Not everything. Some pieces were still missing, but enough to understand what had happened. Enough to know who I had been. I finished therapy in August. Dr. Ian said I had made remarkable progress. The memories were not perfect, but they were there. I could remember Clearbrook now. I could remember the house, the school, the friends I had made. I also remembered the night we left. My dad waking me up in the middle of the night, telling me to pack a bag. The fear in his voice. The way my mom cried in the car as we drove away. I went back to Clearbrook one last time. Walter had passed away 2 months earlier. Patricia was still there. I visited her and told her everything. She cried when I described the memories coming back. "Your parents loved you so much," she said. "They just wanted you safe." I know. Before I left, I stopped by Walter's grave. It was in a small cemetery on the edge of town. I stood there for a while, looking at the headstone. He had given me the truth, and that was worth more than he probably knew. I called Jenna from the cemetery. She picked up this time. "I got the memories back," I said. She was quiet. Then, "How do you feel?" "I do not know yet, but I wanted to tell you. If you ever want to do the same, I can help." "I will think about it." We talked for a while, really talked, for the first time in years. She told me about her life in Seattle. I told her about the therapy. When we hung up, she said she would visit soon. I believed her. I kept the photos. I put them in a frame and hung them on the wall of my apartment. Every time I looked at them, I saw 2 versions of myself. The kid who lived in Clearbrook, and the man who had forgotten him. I also kept working at Driftshade. The job was not glamorous, but it was mine. I did not need anything more than that. Jenna visited in September. We went to dinner. She asked about the therapy, and I told her everything. By the end of the night, she said she wanted to try it too. I gave her Dr. Ian's contact information. 6 months later, she called me. "I remember the bike," she said. "The red one. I remember you teaching me how to ride it." I smiled. "You were terrible at it." I was not. We laughed. It felt good. Walter's house was sold after he died. The new owners turned it into a bed and breakfast. I visited once. They had kept most of the original structure. I walked through the rooms, remembering. It did not hurt as much as I thought it would. Patricia sent me letters sometimes. She told me about the town, about the people we used to know. I wrote back. It felt like closing a circle. I never found out exactly what my father had done. The details were lost with Gregory and the others involved. But I understood why he ran, why he did what he did. He had been trying to protect us, and in his own way, he had. I still clean floors at night. I still live in the same apartment. But I am not the same person I was when I found that box. I know who I am now, and that makes all the difference. The clinic that performed the memory suppression procedures eventually faced scrutiny after my case. Dr. Ian reported the unethical practices that had occurred years before under previous management. The doctor who had performed the procedure on Jenna and me had long since retired, but the clinic was forced to change its protocols and offer restitution to former patients. Gregory's surviving associates, those who had terrorized my family all those years ago, had either died or ended up in prison themselves. The ones still alive lived in obscurity, their crimes catching up to them in one way or another. Justice came slowly, but it came. As for me, I learned that some truths are worth the pain of finding them.